Welcome to the Inner Blueprint Podcast. I'm Sean Foyer, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. With over 20 years of turning blueprints into thriving home improvement businesses, I've learned that the strongest foundations start in your mind. Whether you're building a business or your own success, we're here to reshape how you think and face daily life and always remind you to enjoy the ride. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Inner Blueprint, the podcast designed specifically for the home improvement space, but with our ripple effect, helping millions of people worldwide with mindset, thinking better thoughts to get better results. This is your host, Sean Foyer. Today
and your
with
co-host,
the beautiful co-host,
Caitlin Foyer.
And today we have an amazing guest. I'm so excited to have this gentleman on the show. We're going to drop some bombs of knowledge, experience. This gentleman is an inspirational business leader who in 2009 founded Tunderland Home Improvements on a plastic folding table with $3,000. Think about that. 12 years later, when he sold the family of businesses he created, they had diversified products expanding across multiple states, grown to 600 employees and 150 million in annual sales. The company was recognized by Inc. 5000 as one of the fastest growing companies in America. His leadership principles are simple. Have a well-defined strategy, empower your teams, provide world-class training, and execute with consistency. He believes that if you want to build a business, you must commit to building the people. This clarity of focus creates a meaningful culture, making his company the best place to work for in his home state. And I'm so excited, you guys. These are the principles of mindset that you're hearing here. He's also the founder of Windows for a Cause, which takes replacement windows that would end up in the trash and turns them into art to be auctioned off to help someone in the community. And Baths for the Brave, which provides free, safer shower systems for veterans struggling with mobility. A Harvard Business School executive education alumnus, this gentleman is an active angel investor, board member, and delivers keynote speeches that inspire businesses and individuals to reach their potential. His new book, which I'm so excited to be talking about today, I've got my copy. I've actually been listening to the Audible version and can't wait to get through the second half of it. A Fresh Approach to Leadership, Culture, and Building High-Performance Teams has been published by Forbes and is Amazon's #1 new release. Without further ado, I'm excited to welcome today's guest, Mr. Brian Gottlieb. Welcome to Inner Blueprint, Brian.
Hey, thanks so much for that introduction, for being a fan of the book, and for having me on your show. I really, really appreciate it. We're going to have some fun today.
Oh, we really are. And, I talk a lot about the law of synchronicities. Your book comes out. We're at a contractor event for the Certified Contractors event. You're there speaking, sharing your message, and I got a signed copy of the book.
And the logo is pretty nice, isn't it? Forbes did a nice job on the cover. It was kind of cool.
It's beautiful. Yeah. We love it. And we're so grateful to have you on, Brian. For years, I've just been starstruck by you because you're such an amazing person. You're authentic. Like, what you see is what you get. And they don't make them like you anymore.
Well, it was great seeing you last week as well. And look, the two of you make such a positive impact in this universe. And to your point, the ripple effect, you affect one person. It just goes on and beyond that. It's great. We're going to have a lot of good things to talk about today, I'm sure.
Oh, I love it. And it's all about the ripple effect. One person listening to our conversation today, making their life better, sharing it with a few people who share with a few people. And that's how we go.
It's the best.
Well, where should we dive in first? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because when you think about like mindset, like I think we should let's start talking with you're the pros, the best in the nation on mindset. So let's go there, right? And if we think about that, I think if we back up one step, look, I think every business owner wants to have their organization have a good financial journey, right? They want they want to make money. They want to be able to sleep at night. They want all those sorts of things.
Absolutely.
But, to have a good financial journey for your business, you need a good customer journey for your customers, right? If your customers don't have a great journey, the business isn't going to do well. But for the customers to have a great journey, it means the employees, your team have to have a great journey.
100%.
And for your team to have a great journey, that means they have to be on a great mindset journey. It all starts with how people think. And I think
Yes.
that's where we should start, because it's interesting. When I started my business, right? When I started my business, it was just me and a plastic folding table. The success of the organization was strictly based on how well I performed, my ability to execute. But once a business starts hiring people, and whether they're employees or subcontractors or anybody, now the business's success is based on how well other people perform. And how they perform is directly connected to how they think
Yes.
and their mindset.
Yes. And that's what took me on the journey from being a contractor to being a business coach, teaching process, and then realizing we can give owners, employees tools, but if they have trash in their head that's limiting their thinking, they're not going to be able to produce and become the person they need to become to add value to the organization.
Isn't that incredible? Regardless of the level that the organization is at today, right? By changing the way, improving the way people think about what they do on a daily basis significantly affects how they feel and then how they act and how the business performs. I think at any level, organizations could use you to pop in and really refresh the thinking of the people on the team.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of what we do. That's what we're doing every day. Brian, one question that just popped into my head.
Sure.
When you're setting up that folding table and just starting your journey, what was your mindset? What did you believe was possible for you at that time, going back in time here?
Yeah. First of all, look, my goal was just prior to opening up my business, I was a consultant, and I was a consultant in the industry. I did a lot of sales training. In fact, if I can, I'd like to tell a story that probably very, very few people know. So I'm going to tell it, and then, then it'll transition to what my mindset was. Very, very few people know this story. Prior to me opening up Tundraland, years and years ago, a long time ago, I was a sales person in the industry. Then I became a sales leader. And then I actually started my own sales training organization, right? And I would travel around the country and do sales training. The company was called Silverstone Training, right? There might even be this really old cheesy website out there about it, right? But anyway, and I would survey all these people that would go through my training class, and I would capture them. And it was for the home improvement industry. It was for the education industry, just all kinds of industries I was doing sales training for. And I would ask everybody at the end of the class to fill out a one-page survey. What did you think of Brian's presentation skills? How would you describe Brian as a person? Now, I thought that I would hear, well, Brian taught me how to be a closer. Brian taught me how to sell. What I read on all these surveys is, wow, that was really motivational. That was really inspirational. And I'm reading all these things, and I'm like, I keep hearing the word inspirational and motivational. And I thought to myself, I never thought of myself as an inspirational person. And what if I just simply do more of that? Yeah. What if I go all in on the concept of being inspirational? So that's what led me to that folding table back in 2009. And my goal was, I didn't know where the business was going to get to. I just wanted to be an inspirational leader that could bring people on and possibly change their life for the better. And by doing so, the business just totally exploded.
Oh, well, that's so interesting to hear that, because a lot of business owners start the business to feed the family. And the purpose is on self, not on adding value.
Right.
And one of the things we work on with our clients is when they get their big financial goal, what are you going to give? You don't get unless you give, and you have to add back to your employees. So I love that. And Brian, I don't know if you know, I was a sales trainer for Certified Contractors Network for 5 years. And I heard all the time the same thing. Sean, you're inspiring us. I'm like, well, yeah, but you're supposed to memorize the scripts. You're supposed to be learning this. And they actually weren't doing that, but they were being inspired. And that's why when I left CCN, I was like, okay, I need to find a way to add inspiration to people, but also to close the gap on implementing this training. Because if you don't implement the good information, it does you no good. Right. It does you no good.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I think we can all benefit from asking our circle of influence who they think we are. Like, and you can do it on Facebook. What are one or two words that you would say describe me? Because often we think we're one way, but we're perceived another way. And sometimes it's a much better way. And if we just go all in on some of that stuff, people see things in us that we might not necessarily see in ourselves. And when we go all in on it, I mean, great things can happen.
Oh,
Well,
absolutely.
And the title, Inner Blueprint, is about finding you. And that takes that introspective look. And most people are afraid to ask for that feedback. I remember I was working with Jack Canfield, and he suggested ask 5 people in your life, your kids, maybe your wife, coworkers, to rate you on a scale of 1 to 10. And whatever they give you, ask what it would take to make it a 10. Most people won't do this exercise because we don't want to hear what is going to be said. But I remember Jack saying, well, your wife, her hairdresser knows, her sisters, everybody else knows but you what you could do. So it is cool to get that outside perspective of who do you think I am and how can I show it more powerfully for you?
Yeah. And, if we can just kind of take that, what you just said, and let's apply it to what you can do in your business, whether you have 5, 10, or 500 employees, it doesn't really matter. Often what happens in business is when people quit, they do what's called an exit survey, right? They do an exit survey. Well, they quit. It's an autopsy. Now we know why they quit. But you can actively find out how your team thinks about your business by doing what's called a stay survey.
Yes.
At any time, you can ask them 4 questions. And the first question is, what makes you want to come to work every day? The second question is, what would one day make you want to leave? The third question is, what is one thing we as a company are doing wrong today? And the fourth question is, what is something you need from your manager that you're simply not getting? Just like we need to know how other people think about us, we also know how the team is thinking about the organization. And a stay survey really gets you in touch with that.
Yeah, I love that concept. That was actually something that came up a few months ago. One of our clients, Craig Leary, had to do a few exit interviews, and he thought, why am I not doing this before? Why am I not being prophylactic about this? And started conducting those. And then hearing you speak about that, I'm like, it is the greatest idea that is so underutilized today.
Well, and Brian, your ripple effect, I think in my last networking call with a bunch of my business owners, they were sharing that they'd heard you talk about this or something because everybody's talking about the stay interview now instead of the exit. And what a cool ripple effect. Yeah,
That's
what a cool
best.
ripple effect.
It's the best.
That's why you do it.
Yeah.
Oh.
So you got a chance to read the book, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And you also got a chance to listen to the audio version. So I just need to ask the question, Eduardo Ballerini, is he not like unbelievable?
Like butter, like listening to just, and for me as a former contractor who felt like the character in the story and having a daughter that had gone through a divorce, I mean, the story pulled me in.
Oh, wow.
I related to so many levels. And I know so many of my clients and friends, as they listen to the narrative, and I recommend people listen to Audible, right? The book is a read, but that narration is a story that tugs at your heartstrings. The frustration we all shared, trying to get the employees, that troubled customer that we don't know how to fix. I don't know. It took me back a decade ago to be in my business, walking that story and wishing I had somebody like Marty to talk to and say, oh, what do I do? What are the pillars I should add? Right.
We've all been there, huh? We've all had that rough journey. I guess for those that don't know, just to share with you the structure of the book is written in 2 sections. Okay. The first section is a business parable, as Sean was just explaining, about a struggling contractor that's dealing with the things that we all have dealt with pissed off customers, employees that aren't engaged in the business, just burnout everywhere, high turnover. So the first half of the book is written as a business parable, and the main character, George, meets this mentor named Marty, and Marty shares with him the 5 foundational pillars of leadership, and we get to watch how George, his life really changes, not just even as a business owner, but even as a dad. You can kind of see how his life is impacted. So the first half of the book is a business parable. The second half of the book shifts from storytelling to strategy, where it's how do you take these pillars and really plug them into your business. I read the second half of the book. I'm comfortable with that, but I didn't want to read the parable because I'm like, gosh, a parable, I have different characters and character arcs. I thought I'd flub it. So Eduardo Ballerini is my favorite narrator of all time, and he's the one who read the parable, and I thought he just did sparkling job with it.
Yeah, he nailed the narration, and you nailed the process of the book, because to have a story you can relate to
Pulls you right in.
pulls you right in. And then from there, you get to dive into the second half where we go into the pillars and say, okay, let's get in the weeds here. What does this mean, and how do I use this to powerfully affect my organization?
Yeah.
Well, and I
it's
think
great.
with the way
Yep.
it was structured too, some books are meant to be studied. This falls in that category. And especially that second half of the book is not something that you just read and go, okay, I got it. You study it. You study it daily, how to implement it, what you're doing right, what you can do better in the business. Am I applying this pillar? Am I living this pillar correctly? Am I teaching it correctly? And so I think that you've done such an amazing job of pulling people in with the story and then giving them something to put to action.
To study. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Caitlin. In fact, one of the goals was that, in fact, if we just jump to the very last pillar, which is that managers need a checklist, where that came from is that, look, let's face it, what happens is we take a sales rep and we train them, a new sales rep, they get trained for a couple of weeks before they're allowed to talk to a customer. We take a call center agent, we train them for a week before they're allowed to talk to a customer. Even a marketer is trained for days before they can go work a show or a fair or a festival. Yet we put managers into roles in this industry without any formal training whatsoever, simply most often because they have the most amount of experience, regardless of their ability to coach and mentor people.
Yes.
And there hasn't really been a great training program for managers. So the whole concept of managers need a checklist, the book provides the 10 practices for high-performing managers. It's truly a management training program for your managers. And it's super, super actionable that you can plug into your business. And I promise you, it will make a significant positive impact in your entire organization, because the managers are the custodians of the company's culture. The managers are the custodians of how your team thinks. The managers are the custodians of the team's mindset, because they're the ones that do things like hiring, firing, promoting, compensating. Yeah, so how they do that affects how people think about the business. And as we know, how people think really does define organizational performance.
100%. 100%. And I love that. Like I said, listeners, if you haven't read or listened to the book yet, take action. There's every once in a while a book comes along that can be life-changing for you personally and professionally. You know, my favorite book of all time, Brian, is Think and Grow Rich. And my mentor, Bob Proctor, would say, this isn't a book to be read, Sean. It's a book to be studied. And there are certain chapters I've read over and over for 30 days just to try to get it in. I feel like Beyond the Hammer for the home improvement space. And honestly, the principles apply outside of it, but directly to the listeners of this podcast, this is the Bible. If you follow it, if you study it, if you take the steps, you know, and the first pillar, as a mindset guy, transference of belief. Like, what do you believe? Like when you started your organization, you believed you could make a difference. You believed you can inspire. And because you believe that, that's exactly what you did.
It's true. So what it led to, right? Unintentionally, intentionally, unintentionally, I don't know. Maybe in hindsight, it was more like fate, I guess you could call it, because in 2008 and 2008, I saw a lot of people, a lot of companies really struggling. A lot of great companies went out of business, right? And during that time, as a consultant in the industry, I kept a journal. And in my journal, I kept a list of all the things, if I ever start a business, that I'm definitely going to do, but also another list of all the things I'm never going to do. And it really helped me formulate a plan when I did finally open up my company. But I wanted to create more than just a job for people. I wanted to give them an amazing career path where they could where it could transform them, where they could be given an opportunity to recognize and then reach their fullest potential. And I know that sounds like a really big statement, but what does that mean? How do you do that? And part of it had to be that I couldn't do it alone. I needed the customer to help me in the process. So I needed to create a brand that was more than just a home improvement company, something that was woven into the fabric of the communities that we served, that would be transformational for the team member on my team and for the customer that does business with us. That was the concept. And as it grew, it started to become a significant barrier to entry that anybody wanted to compete with us, because we were able to, because of our mission and our vision and the way we treated our community, we were able to lock up exclusive arrangements with all kinds of marketing sources, whether it's farmers markets or all sorts of things, which is a way to fend off competition while at the same time living our mission and vision. I don't think it's either or. I think if you do it right, it can be both and. It can be great for the people, but also great for business.
Yeah.
Wow, 100%.
Well, I want to go back to something you said that was so interesting. This is such a great tip, and you just flew right by it. You said you kept a journal of what you wanted to do and what you knew you weren't going to do. And I think a lot of times people are like, I don't know where to start. Like, I know I want this, but I don't know exactly what that means. And so making a list of, I know what I don't want. I know what I'm never going to do. That is a great starting point for so many people to implement and to bring these big ideas to life.
Even when you're crafting your vision statement, when we think about a vision statement, it's what do you want your business to become 3, 4, 5 years from now? It's hard to decide that. Mm-hmm. But the best way to do it is start by what you don't want to be. How do you lose? How does an organization lose? Make a list of the ways that a business loses, and the opposite is how you win or what you need to become. And the reason a vision statement is so important for a business is a vision statement talks about what does the business aspire to become and how it wins. Those are the two things it speaks to. But the purpose of it is it should explain the behaviors of the people inside of the organization. How should they behave? Because we have to teach that as much as we teach people how to swing a hammer. We have to teach them how to interact with each other. What sort of attitudes do we want and expect? What does it really mean to win? And defining winning is a great step too. A lot of people say, yeah, we just want to win. Okay, what does winning mean? How do you define that?
Yeah. What does that look like to you? Because my idea of winning is probably different than yours. And that's really important to be able to define and have crystal clear.
Well,
and it changes, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean, it changes. In the beginning, winning means staying in business just for another day, right?
Yes.
But over time, I remember when I remember probably in 2013, my payroll was up to like $40,000 every 2 weeks. Winning was like, can I just cover payroll? Can I just cover payroll? I'm winning.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
When I sold my businesses, by the way, my payroll was close to $750,000 every 2 weeks. Of course you need to cover that, but it's amazing just how things change. But our focus needs to change along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and I think at a lot of levels, Brian, and we've never talked about this, but in mindset work, I help and teach we together to raise their mindset. But there are certain individuals that I work with or that I've mentored under. We call them unconscious competence. They unconsciously practice high levels of mindset. Their thermostats are set differently. And I would say you fall into that category. Yes. I think your consulting work beforehand, the sales training, set you up coming into the industry at a perfect time right after the Great Recession, that you just had some unconscious competence skills that you knew where you were going. You had this belief. And then pillar one, you transferred that to anybody and everybody you hired or worked with. That's something to be commended.
Yes.
While I appreciate that, we'll share with you one more story.
Okay.
So I went to our bank. Okay. At some point, I thought, you know what, I need because I started the business with $3,000 and never put another penny back into it during all this growth. So at some point, I needed a line of credit. So I went to the bank and I asked them for a line of credit, and I had this big idea, this big vision, and this big goal and this great culture. And they said, yeah, we're not really comfortable giving you a line of credit. So sometimes you have to, sometimes you got to fight through things, right? You just got to be, you just got to be all in on what you believe. You got to be all in. And eventually we found the right bank that did buy into that philosophy, but I certainly remember the first one that didn't.
Yeah. Well, again, though, but you believed it. And you 1 no, 2 no's, 3 no's. It probably didn't matter how many no's because you had the belief. Right. And then you can transfer that belief. We always say in mindset, your entire world, personal, professional, every person you interact with, everything you experience, is just wrapped around your belief. And for most people, if you're not getting what you want, you need to raise what you believe inside, what's possible for you, right?
Right. So going back to that first pillar, the first pillar, belief is transferable. When we think about people on our team, right? When we think about people on our team, you're going to grow your business by growing the capabilities of those on your team. Now, sometimes you have to go higher for it, and sometimes it's about developing the people inside. But regardless, they're going to come in at a certain level. The business will grow, first of all, to your lid, and then it'll also grow to the lid of your people. So how do you raise the lid of of those on your team? Now, to anybody that's ever done anything in this industry, if you've gone through, sat in a sales training class or anything like that, you know there are things that are intimidating. There's a lot of new information. I remember meeting with one of my manufacturers when I was taking on a new product, and I was in their boot camp, and they had all these books on their product, and I was like trying to look over the top of this big stack of books, and I'm like, how am I ever going to learn all this stuff? But different people, people are afraid. They have FUD, they have fear, uncertainty, and doubt, and you have to, as a leader, we have to break down that FUD and we do so by transferring the belief that we have in them. They have to know we believe in them, and the more that the more we can help transfer that belief, the higher their lid starts to become. They realize, I never knew I could do this. Oh my gosh, I never knew I could do that. The jet fuel that gets you there is sometimes simply somebody else's belief in you. Oh. Somebody else's belief in you is so powerful. And as a leader, we get to be that jet fuel.
Have you ever heard it termed as the Pygmalion effect? Have you heard that term?
I have not, but I'd love to hear about it.
Okay, so the Pygmalion effect, and it's something I work with on individual clients on mindset, but it's exactly what you're talking about there. And there was a study, and I don't know the full accuracy, but here's the concept. 20 students in a class. Teacher is told that 5 of the students are above average, IQ, test scores. Reality, they're all the same. All 20 are the same IQ. They're just average students. At the end of the semester, the 5 the teacher was told were the best performed the best. And it's called the Pygmalion effect. It's a transference of belief.
Amazing.
And it's interesting because you talk about an employee, they probably, and I remember working with a young client early on in my mindset, and we were talking about this concept, and she had started as an entry-level employee at Walmart. And she'd never have anybody in her life believe in her. Everybody put her down, everybody doubted her, everybody challenged her. And she had a manager that believed in her and said, you are something special, kid. You're going to go places. When I met her, she was a high-level exec making close to $500,000 a year because somebody believed in her. And in your book, Transference of Belief, that's what I heard. I'm like, yes, you have a manager that's not showing up, and their whole life they've been told they're not enough, they're lazy, they're this. You don't want to reinforce that belief. You want to transfer a new belief, and that's right. Exactly what you're talking about there.
Because belief, both positive and negative, are transferable, right?
Yes.
It's not just positive belief is transferable. Negative belief is just as transferable. And in life, we tend to be surrounded by people that, look, sadly, some folks are truly good at crushing other people's dreams and aspirations. They kind of great at it. They're excellent at it. And what we practice, we become excellent at. And if I practice playing golf, I'd sooner or later become really good at it. Today I stink at it because I never practice. And if I practice negativity, I'll find a way to be negative even in the most joyous situations. But if I practice positivity, then I could figure out a way, then I will be positive even in the most challenging situations because I've practiced it. Yes. By transferring positive belief to others, you become excellent at that, and especially at times when people need it the most. And it can truly be a game changer for individuals.
I think that this is something that is so underutilized in the home improvement industry. I've been a competitive cheer coach for 17 years. And what makes me great is because I can look at a kid, I can see their potential, I can get them to believe in who they are and what they can do further than they can even see. And then they're doing things that they never thought they could make their body could do. Like they just never... They think someone else can do it. And they think, oh, I'm not as good as this person, or I'm not as good as this person. And I say, why not? You can do it. Let's go. And they do it, and they're like, oh, my gosh. And so, competitive coaches do this for people. Teachers do this for people. As parents, we do this for our kids. We're teaching them to ride a bike. You can do it. I believe in you. And they're like, I can barely hold on to the handlebars. What are you talking about, Mom? And so it's something that we do in all these different aspects of our life. But business owners, especially in the home improvement industry, overlook this. They don't dive in as much as is needed.
Correct. Imagine if we threw up our hands the first time one of our kids had troubles with homework. And they said, I don't know, I can't do this math. You're right. You're never going to get it right. You might as well quit right now. Yeah, but we don't do that, right? We wouldn't be parent of the year. So if we take some of those basic skills and apply them to the people on our team, yeah, great things happen.
No, it's so true. And in our industry, I always say a lot of contractors didn't grow up in the perfect setting. They grew up in broken homes, maybe scarcity, not the richest environment. Money wasn't always available. And again, we say we're surrounded by negativity, and sometimes by the people that love and care about us the most. And because they don't know any different, they impress it upon us from a very young age. And most smaller contractors, pushing against that drives them to maybe 3 to 5 million. But then those paradigms, that programs that made him a scrapper, hold them from elevating to the next level. And that's where I think a combination of good process, maybe the good pillars that you outlined for us, with excellent mindset will help people work through the process and work through the belief. But yeah, so powerful. Yeah. Just pillar one, you can change your business with transferring belief and good belief.
Yeah, and then paired with pillar 2, where leaders shape culture through purpose and direction. We talked about direction as a vision statement and purpose is why do you exist. I've written about in the book Beyond the Hammer that our vision statement was to do well and do good, but we go on to define what that means. And look, it's my belief that the purpose of business is to make a decent profit decently. And what does that mean to make a decent profit decently? So, and then culture, of course, is, every business has a culture, right? Every business has a culture. But culture is really what are the shared thoughts, feelings, and behaviors of the people on your team. That is your culture, and you can shape that with a strong mission and vision statement, and it's important along that process to understand that your culture, while it's shaped by purpose and direction, it's also shaped by the lowest level of acceptable behavior. Yes. That which you tolerate in your organization is that which your organization will become. So it's important as a leader, and especially if you're trying to transfer belief, that if you don't want negativity, you have to deal with that in your organization. If you can't tolerate negativity, because it will poison the rest of your business. You can't tolerate that high culture fit, low performer, that sales rep that you love, but they can't close a car door, or that high performer, low culture fit, that person that can close anything, but you don't ever want to go on a ride along with them because you're afraid what they're saying to a customer. All of these things define your culture. Now, I'm not saying you have to terminate both those people, but I am saying you need to coach them up. So, but most importantly, they can't be ignored.
Yeah.
100%. And to me, we talk about in mindset, each individual has their culture or their paradigm. And in a company, it's just a company paradigm. And for some companies, because they've had negativity and challenge, it's not the best program. Right. It's not the best culture. And that culture is controlling the results on the outside. And we have to, as a group, raise the culture. And exactly like you said, the lowest level of belief in the company or in the old way of doing things is going to hold the whole team from raising to the new level.
And if you're a smaller company, if you're a smaller organization, because a bigger company can absorb it a little better, but if you're a smaller company and you're going out and you're hiring a whole bunch of people with experience to get things going, what you're ending up with is a bunch of colliding cultures. Yeah. Because they're not just coming with their experience, they're also coming with their culture. Oh, well, we used to do it this way. This is how we used to do that. Or this is how we used to handle that. And you have all these colliding cultures, and you have to assimilate. So having clear expectations around who you are, what do you stand for, what you won't tolerate, this is why we exist, this is where we're going, so you can really rally people around that. It's super important.
Well, and I love as you go through the pillars in your book, as owners starting our own business, right? We think this is our mission, this is what we do, this is why we do it, and we're going to make sure everybody gets on board. And then the organization starts to grow. And so you do have to develop these leaders, these people in your organization to continue to lead the way that you lead so that you can work on your business instead of in your business every single day.
You are spot on. And what happens when an organization grows is you can't be as hands-on as you used to be, because because you start getting further and further away from the customer. And a shepherd should smell like the sheep. And how
I
do you
love it.
constantly make sure you're smelling like the sheep? How are you staying very close to those people, close to the customer? Or how is your messaging staying consistent through your entire org chart, all the way down through into the really deep penetrated into your, so that you're living your mission? It's not just a phrase on a wall. You're truly bringing it to life, because that's what the business needs if you want true sustainable growth, in my opinion.
Yeah, and we see this on a bigger scale with people that choose to franchise, right? One, the original location does amazing, and then they open another one, and it might do okay, and then the next one's like, oh man, this one's sucking, and the next one maybe does awesome, but you get to the point where franchises close, and because you're not as close, but within your organization, not at a franchise level, where is that happening? Who is that happening with?
Yeah, that's a really great analogy too, because you're right. And when you think about opening up multiple locations, right? One of the things that often gets disregarded, but I think it's the most important thing first, is the ability to replicate your culture.
Yes.
Now, that's with a multiple location, but if you think about your own business, each time you have a new department that's added and more people that are added to that department, it's an opportunity for a new culture to grow. And how do you make sure that's all, that's synergistic with how you want the overall business to be growing?
Well, and Brian, for you, because I know in a lot of companies, and I got this actually from Richard Kaler, the founder of Certified Contractors Network. He called almost every home improvement business a three-legged stool: the sales leg, production, and the admin. You've got those three legs, and they all have to be strong and stable and equal. Otherwise, but we find, and I'm sure you saw this, sometimes the production culture is different than the sales, and sometimes those clash. And sometimes, how do you manage, and even with the principals, the culture in the different departments coming together as one culture for the company?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's true. Misalignment plagues organizations, and the challenge with that as a business is that when you have misalignment, you then have competing priorities. You have friction between departments, and when you have friction between departments and competing priorities, you get a very inconsistent customer experience, because different departments will handle things differently because they have different priorities. Maybe the marketing team just wants the problem to go away. So, where the production department might be compensated around margin and they want the problem to go away, but they don't want to give up any costs to do so. And so you have all these different competing priorities. Look, just like an organization needs a vision statement, in my opinion, every single team needs its own vision statement. What do we aspire as a team to become, and how do we win? But then it's also the leader's responsibility to break down silos and create an environment where interdepartment communication can happen, whether it's a daily huddle or anything like that. But it's really important because, again, it's unintentionally departments, as a business grows, make certain changes in their process, and they don't understand the impact it has on other departments within the business. And that then starts to, again, builds up walls. As it is, our industry is siloed because marketers set leads, call center people, they dial leads and set appointments. Salespeople, they sell stuff. Production people, they install stuff. And so it has these natural silos to begin with. So as a leader, you want to say, how do you consistently try to break down these silos to have a well-run organization, one that's aligned and properly positioned to win?
Yeah. And that definitely is a challenge I see in a lot of the clients I work with, and even my own business, and I think communication is key. That's a big one, is having interdepartment communication to keep the issues that one department's experiencing because of the other department unknowingly making a change, like you mentioned.
And even when things are choppy, which brings us to the fourth pillar, is that leaders are aware of the echo of their voice. How we deal with these sort of things is that, your team, I promise you this, if you're a leader or a manager watching this today, your team decides what type of day they're going to have based on the type of day you're having. If your stressed out or angry or anything like that, people are going to want to keep their head down below their desk. They're not going to want to bring things to you. We have to, as leaders, be aware of the echo of our voice. And quite frankly, we don't get to have bad days. If somebody's having a bad day, call me, but don't bring it to your team. You have to show strength, because the business, when it's going through difficult times, they're going to look to the leader for steadiness. And that's just on you. It's your responsibility to do that.
And I think leaders have to really dive into that. And I always say, you can't have a bad day. You can have a bad 24 hours. You can have a bad hour if you need it, right? Maybe a bad 2 hours, but you can't let that transfer to 24 hours. That's ridiculous.
That is ridiculous, right? And it's a good reminder for all of us, isn't it? We can't wallow in it.
Well, and I used to use
we can step in it. We can't wallow in it.
Move on.
Well, and I think so many times owners, leaders, managers try to fake it till they make it. But on the mindset world, we talked about your energy, and it's less important what you say or do, but how you make people feel. And if you're feeling frustrated, you can't take that into the office. You can't take that energy of frustration. If you're in scarcity, worried about payroll, and we do have processes in the mindset to clear that, because you have to clear that. Because if you go in saying the right words, but they can feel in your voice that you're scared. As a leader, you're scared. You don't know what to do, or you're frustrated beyond belief. You got to clear that, because that echo is like the vibration that you're sending that's going to vibrate to your employees, to your teammates,
100%.
to your customers. Yeah.
Yep. Sean, I'm going to tell you one more story to tee up the fourth pillar.
Okay, let's do it. Please do. Yes, I love this.
Really quickly, my epiphany. I think I might have told you this story. My epiphany. I really had a true epiphany. It happened on my front porch after a music festival with my wife drinking a glass of wine. I had a true epiphany. My epiphany was that, when the community is doing well, we feel better about ourselves. We're in a better place. And when the business is doing well, obviously we feel better about ourselves. And this was in 2016, by the way, in August. And I realized that for the business to do its best, the business cannot reach its potential until the people inside the business first reach theirs. Mm-hmm. Now think about that for a minute. For me to realize my full potential, the business has to realize its full potential. But for the business to realize its full potential, the people have to first realize theirs. It was my epiphany that my role as the leader is every single day, how do I help others realize their potential? To do that brings us to pillar number 4, that leaders model their business as a training organization. That if we truly want to grow the capabilities of those on our team and really grow our business, it's great to be a sales and marketing company, but if you really want to grow, we have to model our business as a training organization. We have to always be passionate about training and development. So anyway, that's where it came from. I thought I'd share it with you.
No, I love that. And I mean, SFC is a training organization, and we help develop people, whether it's the owner, and it's not just professionally, it's personally. If I can support one of my teammates or one of my employees to become a better father, husband, member of the community individually, then he's going to add value to my organization. And I think that's such a huge thing, is so many, especially in smaller businesses, the owners are thinking about themselves, about the profit, about the bottom line.
Yeah.
About what's in their bank account constantly, right?
And they're pushing people to give them more without giving the people more. And this is the purpose of making a training organization, that I develop people. Bob Quillen, I've heard Bob talk a lot about, he had in his organization a day of personal development where any employee could come in and learn more about becoming a better person. And
yeah, that's great.
This is starting to spread too, Brian. Your message of training. I have clients that are, and I love that because I'm a training organization now working with home improvement contractors that are developing their companies into training organizations. And the synergy we can create together with mindset and them putting the training processes, next level.
Well, and getting business owners and leaders to step out of their bubble, because we do, just like each department is in a silo, we tend to be in a bubble. Mastermind groups, right? How important are conferences and mastermind groups, and hanging around with like-minded people that are probably going through the same struggle as you. We were fortunate that years and years ago, we started a mastermind group. It was called the Big 12. We did it on our own. It was my friend BJ from West Shore Home, who's now doing, I think, $1.4 billion a year in revenue. It was the folks from Reborn Cabinets. It was, the Nardos. It was myself. It was New Pro. It was all these, there were like 8 or 9 of us. We actually called ourselves the Dirty Dozen in the early days.
I love
But
it.
we all grew together. I was doing like 10 or 15 million dollars at the time. BJ was doing probably 20 million at the time. But together we all grew because we got out of our bubble. Now, I think, you're great at that. You folks do great work that way, and it's so important that people take part in that. It's really key.
Yeah. Everything we do is based on Napoleon Hill's mastermind principle, 2 or more people coming together with a common purpose. And we do add the layer of the personal. Like I talk about the trifecta: better finances, better health and wellness, and better relationship with self. And we usually do in our smaller groups, 8 business owners, all focused on those 3 areas. We see their personal life get better, but we see their and I'm loving, you're talking about your big 12, my little big 8s, they're all growing personally, professionally,
so cool.
and
Oh
they're
my
doing
gosh.
it together. Yeah, it's an amazing.
Yeah.
I feel so
Yeah,
blessed that
that's-
we get to facilitate and work with these leaders at these high levels.
Well, and even,
Yeah, that's the
within
best.
within our program, we're not just like, oh, this is a program we teach, this is a class you attend. Each person belongs to a mastermind, whether that's the in-home sales mastermind, the high-level leaders mastermind, the men's business owner mastermind, the women's mastermind. We have so many masterminds, and we don't just let people get on these calls and listen. It's interactive, it's sharing, it's all of that, which is so important because that's where growth lies. To realize you're not alone on an island. Because I'm having this struggle doesn't mean that someone in Indiana isn't having this struggle or someone in Boston's not having this struggle. And what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? Okay, let's all put this together
Mastermind, yeah.
and mastermind with it to create solutions.
Look, when we went through COVID, that network of friends that we all went through it together to try to figure out, okay, what do we do? Where do we go? It wasn't just me. If it was just me, I would have lost my mind probably. But I had a network of people that were all struggling with whether it's supply chain or customer issues or, just all, the dynamics. Look, people joining masterminds, you folks have such a great one. They would be very, very well served. If they're not in it now, they really need to get in it. It'll fundamentally change your business.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Brian. I don't know if you know this, Brian. So I started my consulting business in 2019. And in February 2020, I kicked out my first small group of contractors. You want to talk about scarcity? You want to talk about all the old stories for me from the '08 recession? And I had like 10 guys in this group, and half of them wanted to bail. They're like, Sean, we're shutting down. We're going to be closed. And we came together, and me as a facilitator, and as you know, we turned a really challenging thing into a boom
One of the
for the home
best
improvement
things-
industry.
yeah, one of the
But
best
without
things
the
for the home
guidance and
improvement
support, a lot of contractors did pull back. A lot didn't benefit from the boom because they got stuck in their scarcity. And if you're an island
That's right.
without a support system, that's very easy to do and actually very natural to do.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Great
Let's
stuff.
talk about the 5th pillar.
Oh yeah, the 5th pillar, we chatted about a bit that managers need a checklist. So, managers, again, if I'll quickly touch on it. If you have a team, and you have a manager, people will, so there was a study done, upwards of 60% of people have quit just to simply have left jobs strictly to get away from a manager. Yeah. That's a horrible statistic. Okay. It's one that's simply unacceptable. We all know, we probably all worked at a company where we had a manager that was an absolute train wreck.
Yep. Yes.
Don't let that happen in your organization. It doesn't need to be like that. Your managers are the custodians of the company's culture. They will if done properly, it will be such a significant competitive advantage for your organization. If done incorrectly, it could be devastating. So
Yes.
pick up Beyond the Hammer, read the 10 practices. Happy to talk about it if you need them.
Well, and we talked about earlier about your journal, but writing things down, and even for a checklist, I use this example with clients all the time. Think of a to-do list in your mind. It's overwhelming. You get up to 6 items on a list, and before you know it, you got half of them done. It's the same thing with a checklist for a manager. You're telling them all these things they're trying to track in their mind, and it's overwhelming, and they're not doing a very good job of it. And they have a checklist they can just. It's so much easier
To take action.
to take action.
Correct. Yep. Very, very helpful.
Well, all right. Well, Brian, any last nuggets you want to leave to listeners? How can they get the book? How can they get more of this information from you?
Sure. Well, if you want to get the book, you can get it on Amazon or Audible or Barnes & Noble. It's going to be in airports in the next month, I think it is. So on the tables inside of airports, it's going to be really cool. Those little round tables. So if you see it, you can take a picture of it and send it to me. That'd be
will.
I was
pretty
going to
cool.
say, if we see one, I'll take a picture and send it to you, guaranteed.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Win-win.
So it is on, again, it's on Audible. It's audio and it's on Kindle and it's hardcover. Beyond the Hammer, great book. If you want more information, you can go to my website, briangottlieb.com. And look, here's the thing. As you start to develop people, as you start to really go all in on the idea that you're in the business to build a business, you have to build people. As you start to gain traction with that, what I promise you, because it happened to me, is that you'll go through this moment where your wildest dreams start to feel more like your destiny. And that, my friends, is what it's all about.
That's what Inner Blueprint is all about, Brian. Like, we are living our dream today because we're holding our mind and we believe it. We're transferring that belief to anyone and everyone.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing your book with us.
Thank you, Brian.
Your time.
Thank you for having me on. Appreciate it. Very
so
grateful.
Much gratitude
Thank you
for you and everything you're doing and continue to do for the home improvement industry, which we both hold very dear to our hearts. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Brian, so much.
And listeners, if you like today's episode, our only ask, subscribe, share. And again, the message here is for everyone. There's people in your life outside of the home improvement industry that can benefit from transfers of belief, of checklists, of culture, of some of the topics. So please like and share. And as always, enjoy the ride. It's a good one. Welcome to the Inner Blueprint Podcast. I'm Sean Foyer, the Universal Mindset Disruptor. With over 20 years of turning blueprints into thriving home improvement businesses, I've learned that the strongest foundations start in your mind. Whether you're building a business or your own success, we're here to reshape how you think and face daily life and always remind you to enjoy the ride.